Well, hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Nick, and this is episode 2 of Attitude Adjustment. Today, we're talking about things your parents didn't teach you about prosperity.
Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
I'm good. How's your week going?
The week is going great.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are. I'm super excited about this little mini series that we're doing about attitude adjustment. And I just
say that so with such certainty. Attitude adjustment.
Attitude adjustment. It's not attitude fixing. It's not your attitude sucks. And it's like, let's adjust it. Like, let's make a little adjustment. Let's refine it a little bit. Because we can always refine it a little, and we can always do a little bit better,
your life is going to be what your attitude is.
Okay, it's kind of a big deal.
It is a big deal. Yeah. The attitude is a big deal. We talked about in the last episode of how your attitude is, mindset is so important. I do a lot of mindset coaching, but I love this word attitude because as we talked about in the last episode, it's like this energetic container of everything. If you could see me, I'm waving my arms around me.
Waving her arms all around her.
Big container of energy. Mm-hmm.
So when we talk, one of the reasons we want to talk about prosperity is just because
I love it.
Kisma's super passionate about it. I'm very passionate about prosperity. Mm-hmm. And also it seems to be a sticking point for a lot of people in some way, shape, or form. And so we want to unpack that in a little bit different way and really talk about the attitude behind it. I notice that you tend to default to the word prosperity rather than abundance. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering why you're so passionate about prosperity.
Yeah, I have this course, Mindset to Get Your Prosperity Set. Link will be in the show notes if anyone is interested. It's such a vibrant course with amazing souls, humans in it, getting great results. And when I created it, the word prosperity seemed to be more energetically aligned with spiritual teachings. So for me, prosperity isn't just money. I know abundance isn't just money, but I feel like it's talked about in a way with money more. Prosperity is your happiness, your joy, your health, your relationships. It's like your whole being. Because let's face it, we can have a ton of money and be miserable in a relationship, and the money just really won't fix anything.
Right.
So the prosperous attitude is one that allows a person to create so much more rapidly and to really manifest what it is they desire in all areas of their life.
Yeah. I think about it and I like it because it relates more to flow.
Yeah.
The flow of energy, and it's like the flow of prosperity. It's not about grasping. It's really about allowing that prosperity in all areas to flow through your life.
Right. Right.
And I think that give and receive and that consistent kind of inflow and outflow is just really a beautiful thing.
Right.
And to me, that speaks more directly to prosperity than it does to abundance, like having, tons and having, all that kind of stuff. It's just, it's nothing wrong with that word. It's a fine word, but that's why I like to talk about prosperity.
I do too. I don't know. Just came.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. So we're talking about prosperity today.
So our parents, what's up with what our parents didn't tell us?
Well, this may not be true for everybody.
And some of you out there might be very evolved parents teaching your kids. I just want to kick it off. I have to say something really interesting because Zoe, was visiting over Christmas. She's 23. She's a little millennial.
I forgot she was 23, by the way.
I know, right?
I thought she was still 22. And I was like, oh, you're 22. And she's like, I'm 23 now. I'm like,
Own that 23.
I'm like, oh my God, this is not happening.
I know. But she said, oh, well, we millennials, we sort of, some of us, it's so easy to have an attitude of lack. I was like, what? She goes, yeah, so many of us grew up. Hopefully this wasn't the case with us because I think we always had a great prosperous attitude, but going through some tricky times economically back in 2006, 7, 8 sort of thing. And just having this fear in households of there's not enough.
Right.
And so she said a lot of her millennial friends feel like there is that nervousness around money.
Well, it's waiting for the other shoe to drop.
It could be waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I mean, that recession was pretty severe.
Well, we had the yoga studio back then. It was very difficult to watch people go through certain things. And it was also wonderful to see them work it out through a yoga practice and land on their feet. But, let's face it, we as parents and our grandparents, everyone is teaching each other. Everyone, parents show their children things by what they say, how they say it, what they do, how they believe. We as parents will show our children or our friends or whatever. Demonstrating is happening all the time.
Right. Well, my parents, but my grandparents had gone through the Great Depression, so that is something that then went through my parents, and it gets passed along generationally.
Right. It totally does. Just embedded in the DNA.
All on my mom's side in particular is a bunch of farmers, and so, they're and then them going through that, and it's just a really different kind of attitude that gets embedded into the thinking and passed down generationally. And so breaking out of that can be a challenge. Now, what else is around that is then we had the industrial age,
right?
And through industrial age thinking, there became, the rise of the blue collar worker, which is, especially from where I'm from, and where you're from too.
Totally.
From steel country, Ohio.
Right, steel mills, right.
And
Ohio Valley, God bless them.
The Motor City for myself, there's a lot of blue collar there, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But
no, it provided income, it provided security, it fed families.
Right, right. But it's when you talk about real prosperity, that is not really embedded in that kind of thinking. So what it is okay, you become reliant on a job. You become reliant on a system in order to provide that safety and security for you. And for a time, that was just fine because
it worked.
People did keep
turned.
jobs for 20, 30 years, and they do what they did, and then they leave, and then they go live out the rest of their life and retire and et cetera. I don't think we'll ever see that again.
I don't know.
Quite frankly speaking, I just don't think that it's rare for me to hear of somebody who has worked at the same job for that long. And it just doesn't exist.
Yeah, I know. In our episode 90 with Susie Moore, she was really great to talk about that, how that day of, the gold Rolex and the retirement and the whole thing, she goes, those days are over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to go back and listen to that if you've missed the episode 90.
Yeah, and she's so passionate about the side hustle and really like having ownership over your income and having something that provides that for yourself, because it really, with where we're at, not only is it not really healthy for prosperity, but it is also just not, it's a false sense of security. There's nothing to be said that you can't lose that job overnight. And then what?
Right.
So that kind of thinking embeds in a lot of other ways too. You have a boss. Your boss tells you what to do. You have a job that's very clearly defined, and this is the way it's supposed to be, and this is the way things get done, and here's all our systems, and you do it just like this. Well, that's really nice for some people. For many other people who are really exploring their potential, really understanding how these concepts, how their spirituality flows in their life, how prosperity flows in their life, how all these things get created. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, if you want to have a side hustle, you're going to have to think very differently because there's no right way to do it.
Right.
And you get to create your own systems.
Right.
And do things your way and find that way that really works for you.
Exactly.
And if you try to apply that kind of employee attitude to that situation, it's not going to work very well.
Exactly.
There's going to be some conflicts there.
Yeah, there's a bit of breaking through those walls in that box and those beliefs.
Yeah. I always thought it would be like, just the coolest thing to be my own boss, when I first quit my job. I'm going to own my life. And, and then I just went off the rails, without any of those guardrails on. I just really...
Oh, it's a whole different system of discipline and understanding. I mean, I do think that combining being able to emulate that system and those hours and the focus when one builds their business is really helpful.
Yeah.
It totally is.
I absolutely agree. And that sense of prosperity is not present in a lot of larger organizations. You've got companies like, that are just paying people just below,
Right.
a certain amount so that they don't, or just below a certain number of hours so that they don't have to pay then for, they don't have to pay for their
Health
benefits
insurance
and all
and-
these
yeah.
kind of things, and it's like, okay, well, you're just going to make just this much.
Yeah.
And so that being in a system like that, it can be pretty damaging to your prosperous thinking. And so what we're really talking about, your attitude of prosperity, is about breaking out of that and really being in the flow. It has nothing to do about whether you keep your job or don't keep your job.
Yeah, because you can stay in a job and have an attitude of prosperity.
And create amazing prosperity in the exact same job that you're in.
Exactly.
And I've seen that, like I've had clients who, I think you have too, had clients who's like, okay, well, I really want to build my own business and yada, yada. It's like, okay, cool. Like, let's do that. And then, come to find out through a lot of those things, they're really like, it turns out that they're actually really happy with that job.
They just need to pivot the attitude.
They needed to change their attitude about it. And then it didn't become what I thought was most amazing. In the instances that I can think of that were that, number one, when their attitude shifted in their job, they really enjoyed it a lot more.
It's so much more. And that's prosperity.
They had more fun. They oftentimes made more money and got more done, and were seen very differently in that organization.
Exactly.
And then secondly is that then kind of for these specific people anyway, taking that pressure off of needing to get out and then needing to have a business that will sustain them and all that, really, that once the pressure was off of that, well, then that side hustle for them really started to flow. And so then now they've got a whole other stream of income, and they've got a whole new problem of like, wow, like this is all awesome. And how am I going to fit this much awesome in my life? Which is a great problem to have, So the attitude, that shift in attitude adjustment can really change the game in a lot of different ways.
It can change everything. And I want to I have a little list here I want to talk about that I'm pretty much betting most people's parents didn't teach them about prosperity. Is it okay if I go through them?
I'm ready, yeah.
Okay, so if I get a little woo on this episode, just bear with me because it's actually really fun. Whenever we talk about the cosmic forces, I get really excited. But one of the really foundational pieces for a prosperous attitude and therefore a prosperous life is that your belief is your truth. Your belief creates a reality. So if your belief is that you will always be just right there and never have enough, you will always be just right there and never have enough.
Yep.
This is a law. And I think that, as those of you that are parents and you have young kids, like the more that you can teach your children to see outside of the box and experience outside the box and have this more open attitude of seeing people who they are at a soul level rather than how much money their parents have or the color of their skin or where they go to school, like expand the belief, expand the horizon of the belief.
Yeah.
Because that's your truth. And so when someone begins to be like, wait a minute, I think I can show up at work and I can have a different attitude, and the end of the day, I'm going to feel differently, you will have it. It sounds simple, but it is an infallible law.
Your belief is your truth.
Your belief is your truth. Here's the other thing, and we're going to get even more cosmic. Here it goes, guys. You are made up of the same rich substance as the universe. Okay? We can't deny this. And the universe never calls and says, I can't. The universe never says, I don't think I can do that. I don't have enough. And the universe is never in doubt. I think the issue is that we humans have not really learned to ask the universe for what it is we desire. We stop at asking for that help, and we stop at expecting it to deliver for us. And the other thing, to be fair, sometimes the universe helps us in ways that we didn't think it was going to turn out that way. So we've got to be super receptive.
It's always sad to me when somebody steps away from something they really want because of money.
Yeah.
It's really, really sad to me.
Yeah.
And that conversation I get, it's a little difficult sometimes a little challenging to navigate sometimes because that reality is so embedded with them. And that decision is so clear that I couldn't possibly because, I just don't.
But it's usually not the money. It's usually there's a belief that it won't work for them. They can't do it. They won't see through it. And you really can when you're willing to dive in and get to that place you want to get and be open and available and receive. It will happen.
Yeah. It's interesting. And it's never about that. Like it's so not about that. And it has way more to do with, following that higher guidance, and just your desires and recognizing that, that desire has been created with the means to fulfill it.
Yes.
The two go hand in hand.
Well, the universe, okay, one more little thing. Let's see if your parents told you this. The universe is based on the law of duality. There's hot and cold. There's dark and light. It's based on the law of duality. So when there is something that you bring into your field that you desire to create, to manifest, and you do not have that, it's out there. Because the fact is you have the opposite of it. You have the non-thing. So based on the law of duality, the thing or the whatever instance, situation, opportunity exists. And it's already existing in your mind. So now it's taking the actions. Don't just sit there on the couch and think about it like in the movie The Secret. Go take action. Go and ask the questions. What needs to happen next for me to create this and bring it in? And be, again, super receptive that it might show up in different ways.
Yeah. I want to circle back to what you talked about in the first episode with being available.
Be available.
Being available for it to show up. It's like
allow it.
Sometimes some people, like you're just running after something so hard that you're just not even available to see it when it's there.
Well, whatever you chase keeps running.
Yeah.
So
pretty fascinating though. And then you wonder like, I'm working so hard. Like, when's it going to show up? And it's like, wait a second. Like, let's look at how this is already here.
Exactly.
And I've seen that so many times in my own life. I always laugh at myself when I do it again, which is like, okay, well, where is it? And I'm looking and it's like literally
it's right there,
right in front of your face.
I know.
That hiding in plain sight thing has just been such a huge lesson for me. I would put that in one of my top lessons of 2017 is that, wow, there's a lot hiding in plain sight. Hiding
in plain sight, right. So be available, be open. You are the same rich substance as the universe. And that universe, man, is if it's the word God to you, if it's spirit, if it's source, if it's your guides, your angels, if it's just light, like life is ready to work in your favor.
Yeah.
It really is. Your soul wants you to have the absolute best of everything. So be available. Now, here's another one. I wonder if your parents taught you this, the law of increase.
Tell me about the law of increase.
The law of increase.
I'll tell you if I learned that one from my parents.
The law of increase, everyone, this is super important. What you focus on increases. So for those of you that are working on prosperity in the terms of dollars and money, if you are focusing on debt a lot more than what you have or what you desire to create, you will create more debt. It's an infallible law. What you focus on increases. If you focus on fear of not having enough, you will have more fear of not having enough. This is why we say when you focus on what you have, that gratitude, we talked about in the first episode of the series, when you focus on gratitude, what you have, that expands, that grows. That's the law of increase.
So is this where a lot of people get stuck trying to solve their feelings around it? So I have let's say somebody has a fear of not having enough.
Yeah.
So I'm going to run out of money kind of thing. Like, okay, I got it just enough, but I'm going to run out if I do what I really want. If I get what I really want, then I'm going to run out of money. So if they have that fear, so you see sometimes it's like, okay, well, I've got this fear, and they're just focused on solving the feeling around it, and then they get stuck in it.
They don't take the action to get their results. Yeah. I mean, look, emotions, processing, this is all important. I do feel in much of the personal growth space, just with some of the people I've worked through this with, is they're spending a lot of time processing, which is like, again, back to that image of the quicksand. Like, let me just dig in a little bit deeper and don't go digging. Process and then let it go. There's a great book, Letting Go by David Hawkins. I think it was published after he died. It's just a great, simple, let go of the emotions. Understand where they came from. Look at what they're doing and then get into action and make the decision. What are you going to focus on?
I'm just cracking up. Like, what was that? We were at a party one time and you asked somebody how they were doing.
Oh, golly.
What was that? That answer is like, oh, I'm processing a lot of grief or something.
Well, grief takes time to
No, it wasn't
process.
grief. No, it wasn't grief. It was something else. Like,
What did I say?
oh my gosh, I wish I could remember. It was so funny in the moment because it was your reaction to it was great. It was like, okay, give me a second. It was I'm proud. Oh, you're like, oh, how's everything going? How's everything going? What are you up to these days? And they were just like a really heavy person. They're just like, it wasn't grief. It was like, oh, I'm really doing a lot of processing of emotions. And you just looked at them like a deer in headlight, like, okay, I think we're going to go now.
I don't remember that. I blocked it.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. It was the funniest thing. Anyway, but no, I agree with you that there's way too much processing going on.
Yeah, because look, guys, it takes the decision, right? As we said in the last episode, decide. Do you want to be in constant processing, or do you want to embody emotions that are of a higher vibratory nature? Joy, gratitude, love. These will then bring more joy, gratitude, love. I'm not here to say don't feel. I'm not here to say that don't be angry, don't be like, be what you feel. If something has happened, we have to notice and go through those emotions, but it's the intellect that comes in and allows you to not derail your life.
Right.
Yeah.
And staying really, what you're really talking about is just staying objective to those, recognizing that as an aspect of of your being.
Right.
And one aspect, there's a lot of other aspects too. You have a physical being, you have a mental being, and that emotional, that feeling body is just one part of it. And it has a specific nature.
It has a nature and a purpose. And the law of increase determines that if you continue to put a lot of emphasis on processing emotions, you're going to create more of those emotions.
Right.
Things in your life will show up to create more of that.
Right. So if you want a lot of prosperity of emotions and emotional upheaval, then you can create that.
Or prosperity of joy, right? Focus on the joy.
Or you can have joy.
Yeah. So it's like if you're working on a business, creating a business, if you're at a job, when you bring the attention to what is being accomplished, it's like you will accomplish more. It's a really cool thing at the end of the week, to go through and yes, you have to look at, okay, where did I not finish tasks or reach goals or whatever? But then when you look at, man, what results did I get for clients or what did I get done? It is such an amazing feeling. And that's where I feel for me, a really full day is when I get off the phone with clients and they're doing well. And I just I'm reignited. I'm ready to go the next day.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's really cool.
Totally. Another one.
Tell me.
What you give, you receive. I think we've heard this. It's sort of like treat your neighbors. You want to be treated.
Yeah.
I think this is one that has been around for a long time. So it's biblical. It's everything, what we give, we will receive. I think what people don't realize is this is in thought. This is in word. This is in energy. This is in action. This is in everything.
Yeah. It's, it's really the law of karma.
It's the law of cause and effect.
So when you look at that and how that goes in every different area of your life, but specifically related to prosperity, it's that understanding that you must give to receive.
Right.
You must sow in order to reap. So you can't be sitting around at harvest time and wondering why you have half the crops if you only planted half the seeds.
Exactly.
And I think there's a misunderstanding a lot of times of what real dynamic action is. It's like there's a lot of frenetic action,
chaotic action.
Yeah, scattered and chaotic. We'll get more into action in the next episode. But I think when it's related to prosperity, it's really planting those seeds and then being available to reap them. People might not recognize sometimes how many seeds you have to plant in order to really reap a bountiful crop.
Totally.
So there is that aspect of, really sowing in abundance. And that's giving, it's giving to other people. That's why the tithing is such a big deal. The tithing
is so important, and everyone has something to give. The beautiful Catherine Ponder, who I love, and I love writing to her and getting her to write, but she writes back to me. It's just so amazing. But she talks about in Divine Laws of Prosperity. We'll put a link to that book in the show notes as well. But, she talked about this woman that was just out of money and was wondering how to put food on the table for her children. And she was speaking with Catherine Ponder, and she said, go give something. You have something to give. And she went out back and grabbed like wildflowers from her backyard. And she thought of a neighbor that had been ill, walked them down the street, gave it to the neighbor who just lifted her up because nobody had given this ill neighbor anything for a while. Came home, someone knocked on her door with it was a while ago. It was like back in, I think in the 40s or 50s with $30 that they owed her. And it was the exact amount of money she needed to go get groceries. It was just like boom, boom,
Yeah.
And that's how the law of increase and law of karma can work. Sometimes it can be so rapid. We just, again, that allowing that availability and that willingness to give without the fear of your not, because when we give and we have fear, that's lack energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fear of giving will taint a bit of the energetics of giving.
It can. Yeah, it
right?
absolutely
So
can.
it's like give and let go and bless and be so happy you gave.
So happy that you could give. Yeah. And that's really what, when people tithe out of obligation, that's where tithing, I think, got turned upside down, is like you give a tenth to, whatever organization that is, and you do it because that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
And that's not, it's not really how that was intended. What it really is an understanding of a spiritual law that says, okay, I'm going to give this, and the law is such that it will grow 10 to 100 times, but
right.
Minimum 10 times.
Right.
So you give a tenth and you're covered.
Right. And the confidence that it will actually work.
Yeah.
Right.
That it is a law. I mean, but the law is reflected everywhere.
It's reflected everywhere. And, to share for some of you that are like, wait, like, how am I going to give a tenth of the money? Like, let's pause and look at some other ways to give.
Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't have to be that. I just use that as an
It's
example.
a great example. Yeah. And if you're wanting to build wealth, give money. If you're wanting, I always say this to my students, and especially in the Mindset to Your Prosperity course, like if you want to build wealth, give money. If you want better health, go treat the planet, like pick up litter, do something, or just treat the planet better. Mm-hmm. If you want more love, you're going to have to put love out. That divine love energy flows to and from.
Yep. If you want better communication, is to communicate yourself. Really.
Direct communication.
Yeah, and over communicate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always really interesting, and I think sometimes it's the hardest thing. It's hard. It feels like the hardest thing to give that you have to give in order to get what you really want.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, oh, I need money. But if you want money, is to really give or to help somebody be successful. Help somebody go make some money for somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. Support somebody else on their endeavor. That's amazing.
I mean, we've made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's just part of the game.
Right.
And that's part of the fun of it.
It's
like, wow,
Yeah.
Whether that's getting that person to another teacher, or whether that is helping that person in their own business and in their own life, those are all forms of tithing.
Right.
That, you're helping somebody else create prosperity. You want prosperity for yourself, or you want help creating prosperity, go help somebody else.
Exactly.
It's really not complicated, but I think, I don't know, I think that's one of the challenges around it is like, it's so freaking simple. Yeah. And your brain.
Simple law, what you give, you receive.
Right. Your little like thinking brain though is like, well, it can't be that simple. I'm going to go complicate that. Like that is way too simple.
Yeah. And, we are in this age of information. And so there is so much noise out there coming into people's brains and minds that this, I call it like the divine success track, like really digging that trench of your success and your focus and your one thing gets decimated with all the noise.
Yeah.
And once it's so noisy, people, I think, get confused on what to give and where to give. And all of a sudden, the noise makes it so easy to go into lack because there's too much crowding the brain and one can't see where one desires to go. And they then think they don't have it. And that's just lack energy.
Yeah.
So we've got to get clear on what it is we desire to manifest, create, and what we are required to give in order to receive that.
Yeah. It is a much noisier world than it was even 30 years ago.
Dude, 10 years ago. Seriously, at least in this brain, I have to do many, many things to eliminate the noise.
It's a noisier world. And so really what's needed to cut through that is the clarity, your clarity of vision and what you want to create with your life. And if prosperity is a part of that, which it very well should be, I'm going to use the should there, like prosperity it's very important.
It is.
In all the different areas and having that in your life. So it really requires that level of clarity to say, this is what I want. This is where I'm going. This is what I want to create with my life. Great. So that lets you, that decision-making process cuts away all the things that don't matter or aren't relevant to that.
Right.
Because there's just a boatload of information of varying degrees of usefulness and accuracy.
Right.
And so when you get caught up in that, one of the biggest things that I see is like, and I think it really speaks directly to prosperity in a lot of ways, but that feeling that like, I don't know enough, or I have to learn a bunch, or I have to know more in order to take my next step. And by and large, that is like, I've seen very, very, very few instances where that's actually the case.
Right.
And we're talking about, like millions of decisions.
Right.
When you really need something else in order to take your next step, most often that next step is right in front of you, but you're not taking it because you're so confused and so enrolled in everybody else's stuff that you can't take it. So way, way, way too much information, and it's just congesting, And so what do you got? Like, if you want prosperity is a nice clean flow. And so the pipeline needs to be clean and clear. And when you've got all this information, it's like a big old clog.
And then comparison sits in, and people are comparing to each other, and that's a prosperity squasher.
Exactly.
Yeah. Be happy for other people, get your head down, blinkers on, go.
Ooh, I like that. And that's a really important one I wasn't even thinking about.
Law of increase.
But, wishing that for others.
Yes.
Yeah.
We must wish others the law of increase as well, because if we're wishing them the law of decrease, dude, you're going to get decrease in your life.
So would it be safe to say that jealousy is a massive prosperity crusher?
Massive prosperity squasher.
How about gossip?
Gossip is the worst. One of the worst.
Oof.
You're sending out words and thoughts that are negative, that are causing drama and trauma. What do you think is going to come back?
Boom.
Yeah.
That's a Kisma smackdown right there.
Totally.
I think that's a good place to
wrap it. Let me just review. Beliefs will create your truth. And if I could inspire everyone, think about it this way. Wake up every day as if you are looking through a brand new lens of life. You have no beliefs, and you have this mission before you. You know what it is you want to create, and you just go. When you're willing to go. So no weird beliefs. Your beliefs are your truth. And believe that you are the same rich substance as the universe. And the universe is never limited. It's never just, and is ready to help and serve. So ask for some help, and be available and super receptive for how it shows up. Practice this law of increase in the positive sense, meaning the positive bank balance, right? Focus on what you do. Have a gratitude journal. A lot of people are talking about this now, and I think it's a great topic. It's like, write down 3 things you're grateful for every day. Wish the law of increase on other people. This is even more dynamic than just gratitude for what you have. Like, you actually want other people to have, and give to receive. And remember, what you give, you will receive. So give some good juju.
So that is your attitude of prosperity.
Radiate that attitude of prosperity.
Interesting. I don't know. I know I didn't learn all those things from my parents.
My parents were awesome, and they worked really hard. And I think, my dad was a giver. So I have to say my dad taught me to give, and I'll just leave with this cool story. At his funeral, this young guy, Paul, we all knew him. He worked at one of my dad's gas stations, sweet guy. And he came to the funeral, and then he came up to my brother, I think it was after, and he's like, your dad helped me buy a house. And that's another key. I'm going to get a little teary. Like, when you start giving, don't go broadcasting it. Like, my dad never came home and said, hey, I helped this guy buy a house. He just made it happen. He helped me buy a house. Like, he was a giver. And so he had a lot of resources. He created a lot of prosperity in his life, from starting to work at age 8, delivering newspapers. Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I so wish I would have got the chance to meet your dad.
Amazing human.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yes. Yeah. And to our listeners, thank you. We'd love to hear from you. Like, how is this working for you? Like, go try it out and let's get some data going, guys. Because I know, and if you're interested in the Mindset to Get Your Prosperity Set course, the link to join is in the show notes. It's an amazing group and those people are getting results. So either do that or write back info@sourcemovement.com and let's get this prosperity attitude going.
Awesome. Peace.
Namaste. Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.